Most dads I know are harder on themselves than they'd ever be on anyone else. You carry a running mental list of your failures, the moments you lost it, the games you missed, the conversations you fumbled, the seasons where you were physically present but emotionally somewhere else. You remember all of that. What you don't tend to remember are the quiet, consistent, unglamorous things you're actually getting right. And there are more of those than you know. And you need to hear that periodically. So today, I want to do something a little different. I want to flip the script because if you're the kind of dad who listens to something like this, if you're thinking carefully about fatherhood, trying to grow, willing to be challenged, there's a good chance you're further along than you feel. So here are 10 signs you're a better dad than you think. The first one is this: you're still teachable. You haven't decided you've arrived. You haven't drawn a line and said, this is who I am, take it or leave it. Scripture is still shaping how you see yourself and your kids. Your wife's voice still matters. You're paying attention to what your kids are showing you about yourself. And something in you is humble enough to receive that. You're reading books. You're listening to podcasts like this one. You're sitting with other dads who push you and challenge you and tell you the truth. That posture, that willingness to keep learning is not weakness. That's wisdom. And it's rarer than you think. A lot of men just close down somewhere in their 30s. They stop learning. They stop asking questions. They stop reading. They stop letting anything in. Well, you haven't done that. And that matters more than you know. Second, you ask questions instead of just giving answers. You're curious about your kids, about their day, their feelings, their inner world. You want to know what's actually going on inside of them, not just manage what's coming out of them. There's a real difference between a dad who talks at his kids and a dad who talks with them. One is broadcasting, monologuing. The other is connecting. You're seeking first to understand, then be understood. You listen more than you lecture. You're discovering who they are rather than dictating who they should be. And that kind of curiosity, that genuine interest in their inner world, tells them something words alone never could tell them. You matter to me. Third, you say, I love being your dad. Not just, I love you, although that matters too. But this is different. I love being your dad is specific. It's not a generic expression of affection. It's a declaration about this kid, this relationship, this particular irreplaceable human being that you get to call yours. When your son or daughter hears that, something happens in them that's hard to explain, but it's really impossible to miss. They know that you're not just going through the motions, that they're not an obligation. They know that they're not a burden that you're managing. They're a gift you're grateful for. So say it more. Say it specifically. I love being your dad. It lands differently. It really always will when you say it. Think about bedtime. You go in, you sit on the edge of the bed for a minute. Maybe you pray together. And before you leave, you say something specific. Not just love you on your way out the door, but I love being your dad. Or I'm really proud of you, or I was thinking about you today. That 60-second pause before you close the door does something in your child that you won't fully see for years. But they'll fall asleep knowing that they are seen, knowing that they are wanted, knowing their dad chose to be there right there at the end of the day with them. Don't underestimate those 60 seconds. Fourth, you protect without smothering. You haven't cleared every obstacle for your child. You've learned, maybe the hard way, that a child who is never allowed to struggle is a child who never learns he can survive one. So you stay close, but you don't hover. You let them fall sometimes. You let them try and fail at times. You let them face hard things. You don't rush in to fix every problem or smooth every rough edge. And you do that not because you don't care, but because you're building something in them that comfort alone can never produce: resilience. And resilience isn't taught in a classroom, and it isn't caught from a lecture. It's grown through difficulty, with a dad nearby who believes his kid can handle it. That balance, present enough to catch them wise enough not to carry them is one of the hardest things about fatherhood, and you're doing it well. A developmental psychologist named Emmy Werner spent 40 years, can you believe that? 40 years following nearly 700 children born on the island of Kauai, Hawaii in 1955, the entire birth cohort for that year. Many of those children grew up in real hardship, poverty, financial instability, parental illness. Researchers expected the odds to break them, but something surprising kept showing up in the data. 1/3 of the highest risk children grew up to become competent, caring, confident adults anyway. And the single most consistent factor in their resilience wasn't wealth or a program or a perfect environment. It was this one thing: at least one stable, caring adult who believed in them were present in their lives. One person who stayed, one person who didn't clear every obstacle, but who was there. You're that person for your child. That presence, combined with the freedom for them to struggle, is the exact combination that builds kids who can handle their lives. Fifth, you've created routines that build stability. Now, this is important. Maybe it's a Saturday morning ritual that's been going so long nobody can remember when it started. Maybe it's the way you tuck them in, or the questions you ask on the drive to school, or the particular way your family does holidays. Whatever it is, those routines are doing something in your kids that you may be underestimating. Predictability really isn't boring to a child. It's safety, it's security. It's the answer to an unconscious question that they're always asking. Is this place stable? Is my family solid? Can I count on this? And every time you show up for the routine, you're answering that question. Yes, yes, and yes. Let me zero in on one routine that's really worth fighting for. It's the family dinner table, the nightly ritual of family dinner. I know your schedules are busy, and I know some nights it feels impossible, but this one is non-negotiable. And here's why. When your family sits down together for dinner regularly, your kids learn how to tell stories. They learn how to share what happened in their day, how to put words to what they're thinking and feeling, how to hold someone else's attention. They're learning how to sit and listen while someone else tells their story. They learn that other people's stories matter, that the table isn't just their platform, it's everyone's. Now, that's a social skill that no app is ever going to teach them. Speaking of which, the dinner table is one of the best antidotes to screens that we have. Therefore, no screens at the dinner table. It's one of the few places where kids have to actually look up, make eye contact, and speak to real human beings in real time. They learn how to have a conversation, how to ask a follow-up question, how to read a room, how to sit still and be present. You know, we're raising a generation that is losing those abilities, and you're one of the dads pushing back on that every time you call your family to the dinner table. They learn to slow down and eat like humans. They learn gratitude, even when the meal is not their favorite, especially then. They learn to receive something imperfect with a thankful spirit. That's a life skill. They watch you lead a conversation. They listen to others. They watch how you treat their mom at the table. They hear how you talk about your day, your work, your faith, your struggles. And they learn about each other, not through a highlight reel, but in the ordinary, unfiltered rhythm of daily life. That's what makes family connection rich. Not the vacations, which are great, but not the vacations, not the big moments. It's the Tuesday night dinners where nothing special is happening except everybody showed up together to eat a meal. And all of that creates something you can't manufacture in any other way. A culture of togetherness, a family that knows how to be together. And that is rarer than you think. And your dinner table is where it's being built. Deuteronomy 6 talks about passing faith and values to your children when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, when you wake up. In other words, in the everyday, in the ordinary moments. The dinner table is one of the most powerful places that happens. Protect it. 6, you're breaking the cycle. This one may be the most significant thing on this list and the one you're least likely to give yourself credit for. You didn't have what you're giving your kids. Maybe your dad wasn't around. Maybe he was around but checked out. Maybe he was critical and cold, and you spent your whole childhood trying to earn something he never really gave freely. And you could have just repeated that. Listen, a lot of men do. It's the path of least resistance. You default to what you know, to what was modeled for you, what got handed down to you. But somewhere along the way, you, as a dad, made a decision. You said, not on my watch, not in my house, not with my kids. And listen, that decision took courage, real courage, the kind that doesn't get celebrated and doesn't come with applause. But you looked at what you were given and you chose to give something different. That's not a small thing. That's a legacy moment. And your kids may not understand what that cost you until they're parents themselves, but they will understand it and it will matter. Seventh, you've repaired a broken moment. You've had them, we all have, the conversation that went sideways, the season where you were gone in ways that had nothing to do with your physical location, the blow up you're not proud of, that period of distance that grew between you and your child before you even realized how far you drifted. But you came back. You sat down. You said something like, listen, I was wrong. Or I miss spending time with you. Or I'm sorry. Or I haven't been the dad I want to be, and I want to change that. You apologized. You re-engaged. You repaired it. Most dads were never shown how to do that. I certainly wasn't. Most of us grew up watching men double down, go silent, or pretend it never happened. The fact that you can go back and repair a broken moment, that you're willing to humble yourself and take the first step, is one of the most powerful things you can model for your kids. Because what they're learning isn't just that dad makes mistakes. They're learning that mistakes aren't the end, that relationships can be repaired, that love is strong enough to survive a rupture. They're learning that from you. Don't underestimate what that's teaching them. Eighth, you keep your promises. Your word is your word. You don't just talk about what matters, you show up for it. Your actions match your values. What you say is important, you actually sacrifice for that. Your kids don't have to wonder if you'll follow through. They already know that you will, that you're dependable. That kind of dependability doesn't get announced. It gets accumulated quietly, one kept word at a time. And it becomes the framework through which your children learn what it means to trust someone. You're building that framework right now. Every time you follow through, every time you're where you said you'd be, every time your yes means yes, you're laying another brick in that foundation. And one day they will build their relationships, their commitments, their own families on what they learned about integrity from watching you. Ninth, you're giving them something you never had. And I don't mean a thing. I don't mean a house or a car or a college fund. I mean a feeling, security, belonging, that sense that someone is genuinely for them, the knowledge that they have a dad who is really, truly, completely there. You figured out how to give what you never received. You didn't have a map for this. Nobody handed you a model. You had to find your way to something that was never shown to you. And you found it anyway. And that is extraordinary. And I don't want you to walk past that. Your kids may never know everything that cost you, but you know, and it was worth it. And then 10th, this one matters so much. You correct, but you don't crush. You haven't taken the easy road of either extreme. You're not the dad who explodes and leaves wreckage in his wake, and you're not the dad who goes quiet and leaves a vacuum where guidance and correction should be. You lean in. You do the hard work of discipline because you love them too much to let things slide. And you make sure that they know, even in the hardest conversations, even in the moments of real correction and discipline, that your heart is for them and not against them. Think about the last hard conversation or moment of discipline you had with one of your kids. Maybe they did something wrong. Maybe you had to address something you'd been putting off. And instead of unloading, instead of making it about your frustration, you sat down, you were firm, but you were warm. You addressed what happened without making them feel like they were the problem. Ephesians 6:4 says it directly. Fathers, do not provoke your children to anger, but bring them up in the discipline and instruction of the Lord. Authority and tenderness in that same sentence. That verse isn't asking you to go soft. It's asking you to be complete. Discipline without provocation, correction without crushing. You hold authority and affection in the same hand. You lead and you love at the same time. That balance, listen, is rare. Most men can do one or the other. You're working to do both. And your kids are being shaped by that in ways they may not ever be able to name, but they will feel for the rest of their lives. Okay, 10 signs, 10 quiet, consistent, unglamorous ways you're showing up for your kids. None of them make the highlight reel. Nobody's handing out trophies for staying teachable or keeping your word or saying, I love being your dad. But your kids are watching. They're observing. They're building their understanding of the world and of themselves on what they see in you. Listen, you're further along than you feel. Keep going. Keep leaning in, leading well, and loving big.